What's shaking, cats and kittens? I'm Rob Lee from Getting to the Truth in This Art. And this podcast is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Bazaar. Bazaar is a gift shop for those seeking the strange and unusual. Got morbid curiosity? Got an interest in natural history? Bazaar's got you covered. Bazaar specializes in antique medical equipment, jewelry, prints, funerary antiques, and many other morbid gifts. The inventory is ever-changing. I'm wearing a great death's head moth pin, and I'm enjoying this hand-poured candle called Overgrown Cemetery. It's great. It has the studio smelling awesome. Head on over to 3534 Chestnut Avenue in Baltimore, it's in that Hamden neighborhood, and see what they got to offer at Bazaar. Tell them Rob Lee sent you. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today's guest is a multifaceted artist who centers her practice on music editorial, portrait photography, and media production. We have Diamond Dixon. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I give the Michael Buffer, the intro when I have illustrious guests.
Yes, I appreciate that.
So thank you. I'm glad we were able to get this squared away and this sorted out. And this is going to be a treat. I have high hopes for this one.
Yes, thanks.
So I can do no service. I can do nothing good to describe what you do. So I would allow you to do it. Can you describe your work and give those that are uninitiated who may be listening what you're doing and what your work is all about?
Sure. So I'm a visual artist, and most of my work has been centered around music editorials and portraiture photography. And like you said, I center my work around media production as well. So throughout the duration of my career, I've also been like behind the scenes, working as production assistant, doing really anything behind the scene work that I could like get my hands on. But my work is all about power, like power in your actual, your physicality, or just like yourself, like being empowered in who you are. And, you know, a real reason why I started to be, or I got into photography and moved into that direction is because I noticed that, you know, our culture specifically, we haven't been documented properly. So that's one of my reasons and drives for like being behind the camera is, you know, to make sure that our story is told through imagery and through media as well. So
within your work, there's a responsibility to being authentic and congruent to people that look like you and I.
Exactly.
So would that be one of the main focus or drivers that draws you to a project? Are there any other things that draw you to a project?
I would say really just being authentic. What draws me to a project or a person to photograph them is just their authenticity and like their true expression of themselves. Like, I'm an advocate, like I said, for being yourself, power in yourself, and like just being who you're here to be, you know, and that is something that, you know, I strive for in my actual day-to-day life is like just making sure like that I'm documented, like through whether it's writing, any form of media really, you know, but like I said, in my mind, how I approach, you know, imagery is like really I look for like the essence of someone that's like unique and, you know, authentic and raw. Like I love all those factors when it comes to someone that's just truly natural behind it. And that's just like, you know, you can just tell that they're living, they're here, you know, like they're present. I like being around people like that, like that are like happy to be here on earth, despite like what's going on. And not even like with just what's going on right now, but in life in general, you know, we go through so much. So that's what draws me to people, you know, when I have a project in mind. But aside from like, you know, a one-on-one, when I actually have projects in mind, I'm always viewing it like, how is it going to be impactful? So that's something that I'm working on now, is like putting my all behind a company that I'm working on called the U Media. But aside from that, like I said, I always look for, how is something going to be impactful? How is this going to really like open the mind of the next person to inspire them to do something impactful in their community or through their work?
So, and it's while being dipped into what the project is, you're also thinking about it from, I guess, an end user perspective too, of like, who's receiving this? Is this message congruent with what my philosophy is and what your mantra may be, right? As a in a photography space.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel like we have so much power with words and media and imagery. And imagery is a true, like I always tell anybody I have a conversation with, I'm always like, hey, like, without creators, this world would really be, nowhere. Like, everything came from a thought or creation. So like, that's just something I'm very, fixated on, is like, how is my work like being received, and how is that allowing them to like, propel themselves in whatever they want to do? Sure.
Yeah, I think that's very important nowadays overall, but nowadays to just keep that in mind, like why you're doing something and just really, what does it mean to you? And it's kind of challenging at times to balance the two, where you're doing something for a creative pursuit and kind of echoing what you're saying. Like, I think that's the seasoning. That's when I look at Baltimore, for sake of argument, right? That when you start having people here that may not have Baltimore in mind, may use it as a stepping stone to get to a New York or California. That's the thing that kind of makes it a little weird for me. It's like, are you contributing to what makes up the culture here, or are you passing through? And we have a habit of calling it out here, and people will quickly throw out that whole, it's a crab in a bucket thing. You're just dragging someone down, but that is a component.
Yeah. So when I like what you said there, like, are you just passing through, or are you making impact here? I feel like, well, I'll go back into like my background. I'm from Norfolk, Virginia, like originally, but I grew up in PG County. And
you're not from Baltimore. Get off. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not from Baltimore. But I have roots there, like, as far as just, meeting people and like doing work there. But back to what I was saying is that just like my experience in Maryland and PG County, I ended up like on this side of town because my father, he lives in, the county on this area, on this side of Baltimore. Yeah. And I just, every time, and also when I was younger, like Patapsco Market, I was always there. Like, where else?
That's a Baltimore location right there. That's a very Baltimore location.
Yeah, like, no, like my dad will always take me there to just like shop. We would do like, eat there. My mom then eventually she started selling stuff there, and I would help her there. So I just always had a connection to Baltimore. Then when my father moved over there, I will always come to the city because there's nothing to do in the county. Like, I will be always in the city trying to find out what's going on here,
But say that for the people in the back that aren't listening. There's nothing to do in the county because people get that weird thing.
Nothing. Yeah. There's nothing to do in, I would even say Baltimore County. At the time I was in Hartford County. Yeah. So there was nothing to do out there. I was just like, really like, what is going on? Like, so I found an internship in Baltimore, but before any of that, I was always like drawn to Baltimore because I felt like, wow, this is a space that is truly creative. Like, I felt like people come there, like you said, and they're able to, create more so than you are in any other part of like this region. Mm-hmm. So even though I feel like you can do that in DC, but it's not as like on the scale of Baltimore, and Baltimore doesn't get that, that highlight at all from any, I mean, people know the people that's from Baltimore and that like pass through and, call Baltimore home at this point, like they know what, you know, the roots and the background of like that area. But like, I just felt like from when I was like, because my first time like really experiencing Baltimore on my own was when I was like 18 or 19, like just going out there, being on my own. And I always had like this like responsibility. I was like, I feel like I need to do something here.
Yeah.
And that's when I started a project called Be More. I met one of my friends. His name is Andrew. He goes by Groovy Drew. And he introduced me to some people in Baltimore. And I just knew the city wasn't like how everybody, exposes it or try to be like, you know, this is what the city is. Like, I just knew that wasn't it. And on a broader scale, that's not it. And a lot of cities that, you know, that are Black cities, you know, Detroit might get that, Chicago, anywhere, Brooklyn, like a lot of places get that, like, oh, this isn't, you know, the place to be or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't want to like put too much focus on that, what people have like idealized it to be. But I just knew that stuff that I was hearing, and I'm pretty sure that other people have heard it too, but I just knew that wasn't true. Like, we all have a story to tell. So I started focusing on some people out in Baltimore that I love, Justin and Marcus Maddox. And I just wanted to show like a different side of Baltimore through their eyes. That project, it was supposed to be a full length like documentary. That's something I'm still honestly working on to this day. Just to like get the, you know, the nooks and, you know, I just want that to like actually be something in the future. But I started out with a prequel series, and that allowed me to just gain a lot of research about the Baltimore area in general. And there's just so much history in Baltimore. There's so much rich history and all over Maryland about our ancestors that I just feel like, you know, we need to like pay more attention to. So I feel like I was just drawn to that, you know, this area specifically because our ancestors, we really built this land, and specifically Baltimore. There's so much like richness there. So I just feel like I'm not done like in Baltimore specifically. Like, I'm still like figuring out how can I contribute, because there were so many things that I realized was like that as an artist, for, you know, coming from where I'm from as an artist, like I realized like, you know, there's so much to still be done, as far as like people having access to the resources and capital to make that city be what it should be. Like, there's no reason. Okay, I don't want to keep going. If you
No, you're good.
I'll go on a tangent, but yeah, like we can keep going. But
I think like I think you're right. I want to step back a little bit in some of the stuff that you said, because it's a lot there, and it's a lot that's on people's mind. And then sometimes you just put it out there. It's like a stream of consciousness, right? And the reality of it is you're right in many instances where you have a predominantly Black city. It's over 60%, but you know, when we celebrate it, we don't necessarily celebrate the demographics here. We celebrate a few different people here and there, and we only look at the demographics when we want to talk about these negative things. Right. I think one of the reasons people come through here is because you kind of have that accessibility and community that's relatively accessible, and at the same time is gritty and authentic. That if you make it here, you've already it's like if you're in gym, if you're doing weightlifting or something like that, it's like I can do the easy weight now,
right?
Because I already been lifting that heavy Baltimore weight,
right?
And that's the thing. Like, people come here, they get it, and if we tell you that your stuff is bullshit, right, then you got to go back to the drawing board. And people have those periods where they come here, do their thing, get over, and then suddenly they're somewhere else. And I think I like what you were getting at. It reminds me of my background. I went to City College here in high school. And one of the things about City College that I recall upon graduation, one of the last things we had to do before we wrapped up was go into the top of the castle. We had this like castle. It was called the Castle on the Hill. And we had this castle, and you would go to the top, and then you would write your name inside of it. So you were always part of the school.
Right.
And it seems like that's what you're interested in, and leaving your mark in that way.
Right.
Is in Baltimore. Like, I want to contribute this, and you may move on, but you always carry that piece with you.
Yeah. Well, one of my like dreams or just goals that I had was to like go to New York, go to LA, be bi-coastal. But I ended up spending some time in both cities. Mm-hmm. And I realized I was like, we always want to go somewhere to make impact, but the true impact is, and the true value and impact is within yourself. Mm-hmm. You make wherever you go impactful. And that's what I realized about going to these cities. I was like, like, I have a little formula. I already know the little formula. Like it's you just go and you create your impact. It's no, let me move here and let me, You
need to share that formula with me.
Who works for you at the end of the day. But I felt like I look at things from a holistic point of view. Like, is this area really, I look at it from a geo point of view as well, geographical, point of view. Like, is this like safe for me to live in area wise? But either way, like, I'm not gonna go in too much detail for that. But I just realized that, you are the value, you make the value.
Wherever you go,
wherever you are valuable. And I feel like wherever you're from, it is a responsibility. If you are going to go into the entrepreneurial space or whatever space you're in, like, to give back to where you're from and your community, to, further elevate your community so they can be propelled to go do something else in a different community, whether that's in the same Baltimore community or, wherever. But I feel like there's a very important like thing that you said there. Like, people, we'll come to Baltimore almost for like validation or trying to, trying to just gain some type of outreach. And I feel like that is the home and the space for that. And I wish, one of my things is like, I really want Baltimore to be more built up. Like, I of course I need to do more research, but when I was doing the research, like, and when I was living in the city, I was like, I don't know if you're familiar with Odell's. It was a old, not old. Sorry,
I was waiting for it. I was waiting. Yeah, it's washed.
No, that's not what I meant. But it's a historical Black club that was, on North Avenue. So I remember when they had an exhibition for that. Yeah. I was so interested in that exhibition, and I was like, who owns this space? Who owns Odell's present day, like, right now? And when I found out, I was like Micah or like the city or something like that. Like, so it was like tied to something like that. And I'm just like, why aren't there more commercial real estate spaces for Black artists to use? Mm-hmm. That was when, the Crown was there and, just other things that people are using. But honestly, I felt like that place, it wasn't, even though we made that place what it was and everything like that. And the artists, the natives that, one of my favorites, like Abdul Ali, like, I really felt like Kalan and everything that they were doing with that, Flat Out with Lawrence Burney, like, to me, that era was really like building up the Crown, but that was in, from my perspective. Yeah. But what I'm trying to get at here is that there's so much like commercial real estate that isn't in the hands of people that really want to see Black art live. Like, they want to see more so the Micah art live, or like, this washed down, I don't want to call it washed down. That's their version of art, but our version of art is totally different, and we should have more representation in that space.
It's super sanitized. I think the other thing that's there, like, Lexington Market, right?
Right.
Now, Lexington Market is in that process of being redone and all of that stuff, as well as a few of these other historical like markets, right? Now, Lexington Market has a big ass sign on it that says the world famous Lexington Market. Mm-hmm. So why? I understand the purpose of the rebrand and the redo because of, it's old and so on, right? But are the vendors moving in there representative of what's in the city and what the needs of the city are? Right. So it was already world famous.
Right.
With all of the quote unquote issues that it had there, you know, people who are buying drugs, people who are on drugs, and whatever else that they are claiming preceding this rebrand. But it's a version of like this gentrification. And I don't know to which degree. And again, maybe it's on me to do the research, but my gut is pretty good, right? That I don't know how many opportunities going to be listed there. I've seen some things for like Black vendors or vendors of color and so on, but I don't know if they're endearing themselves to providing spaces for artists of color. Like, hey, can you put your work up in here?
Right. I actually have a comment on that. So I remember this was 2019. So it was like July or something. But I ended up, so the developers that are working on the new Lexington Market, I ended up having like an Instagram post series where I was like basically letting them know like what the history of the Lexington Market was, and I was like, I hope that they, you know, that they add pieces of that, of the history that is there, and just
that they honor it.
That they honor it, that they, you know, that they do all that is actually needed to be done for that, especially on the artist's point of view, from the artist's point of view, like making sure that our art is in there and all types of stuff. But I actually didn't like follow through with that because at the time I was about to go overseas. So I still have the opportunity to reach out to them because they wanted me to be almost like a consultant. But I wanted to put that in the hands of natives, you know what I mean, that are actually from there. I reached out to some friends. They never reached back out to me about it. But either way, there's
you see what I'm doing, right?
Hey, look, you know, after this, I'll link you to them. But also, I just feel like it's our responsibility whenever we see something in any type of in our communities that's being changed, we need to be asking questions. I feel like people don't ask questions. And that moment taught me, I was like, you have to be angry sometimes. You have the issue. Yeah, you have to, you know, at them sometimes or whatever. I mean, for that part, you know, for me, for that part, you know, that maybe it might not always work. You know what I mean? When you at somebody on a social platform. But I think what I'm trying to say here is that if we have issues with stuff, we have to like contact the developers. We have to reach out to them. We have to get the emails of these people. And we have to become active participants in our community instead of letting things just happen.
No, I can 100% agree, where it's almost like this thing where you have these places that have a culture, right? And they're really known for, like, one of my favorite places is New Orleans. And that may be, if I don't stay here, that might be the place I relocate to. And when you think of New Orleans, you think of certain things like alligators and jazz or gumbo or whatever, right? But there's no guessing what it is.
Yeah.
I used to do this thing, and I'll ask you, I used to do this thing. I would ask people, who is the Black pop culture representative of Baltimore? When you think of Baltimore and you think of television, movies, film, someone that has that crossover appeal, who would it be that has ties to Baltimore? It doesn't even have to be a Baltimore resident. And I rarely get an answer.
Like present day, are you talking about like timeless, like
period, like flat?
True. I mean,
that's an issue.
For me, it's Trey Harris, you know. I mean, but because like I watched Trey Harris. I don't know if you know who Trey Harris is, but she's an actor, a poet, and many other things, I'm pretty sure, like as far as creativity goes. But I watched her from the Romantic Movement with Jesse Boykins III, you know, and I'm pretty sure she had her outreach through like New York and stuff like that. But that's someone that I really admire. You know, she's an actress. I say actor at first, but actress. And one of the movies I've seen her like act in the beginning, it was like Newlyweds, and I saw her at the Charles Theater, like, you know, launching that film and everything, or the premiere for that film. And she's like, you know, I feel like we also there's a lot. There should be a union like for Black artists in Baltimore, for, you know, for everyone to get together and like, you know, really figure out what is the trajectory, you know, and how do we want to be represented. Yeah. But it's gonna start. We can't keep relying. So back to what I was saying about Lexington Market and like, you know, being active participants. I know that you can also like, they also had like a town hall meeting or something too and everything. But I feel like it's more, we make more impact when we just go directly at whoever it is. That's when I had, you know, I got the most, you know, just response back. You know, I'm not about to go on no city hall meeting. That's for me in particular, because I feel like I want to sit down on a one-on-one, you know, like, and that's what, you know, I was able to speak with the one-on-one with one of the like representatives of that developer team. And she was, you know, she gave me all these resources and stuff. But like I said, like, I feel like there has to be more developers. There has to be more like to build up that area. And I've been doing the research. I know it can be done. There's a lot of things that can really truly be done. But it's going to take strategy, like, to be honest, like strategy and really being rooted in a cause. And that's for me, like what I'm realizing about my whole company and everything. I was like, I had to be rooted in a cause and understanding to really like ground myself to understand everything in its entirety, to like really be like, all right, this is how I'm gonna go at it. And that's how I actually view everything that I do when it comes to artistry as well. Like I really take time to examine before I like, you know, just take something into the next level of what I'm thinking of in my mind. But
yeah, I think it's important to chew on these things for a minute instead of just go at it 1,000 miles a minute and then you get it done. But then you're like, did this really mean anything? Because I'll say this, you artsy people, I'm excluding myself from this because I don't have emotions, but you artsy people, you're very emotional people, very sensitive people. And I mean that in the most beautiful, bright and vibrant way. But, you know, if you're doing it and it's something that's speaking from the soul or what have you, it's going to be something that you have to be rooted in what you're doing, why you're doing it.
Right.
And, you know, but going back to one of the things before I got like one or two more questions and then we'll get into a chance to shamelessly plug your stuff before we wrap up. But I think it's important to actually focus on a couple of things you said, actually. When you're trying to really make that change, and that seems what you're describing there, or make some type of change, have some type of impact, you really have to know where you're focusing your energy. You know, town hall might not be the best space if you're trying to really get an answer and you don't need to be in a public forum for it.
Right.
It's as simple as, you can just email me back or have a 5-minute conversation with me. That's going to save both of us time. Yeah. Secondly, like, do enough research to know what you're doing, because when you get that time, it's almost like an interview. It's literally like, prepare, get yourself ready and get yourself sorted and know what you're doing. And I think also what I kind of sussed from what you were saying is you kept saying in the hands of people who are natives, hands of people who are Baltimoreans. Ultimately, you want to pay homage and respect for the place you're in. A lot of people just come in and then they kind of vulture off. And let's say if they do have the chance to make some impact, once they go, then the changes that they put in place, it may not be what's best for the climate, the community or whatever, but they're no longer there to really be accountable for it and care about it. So it's like, if you can connect some people and then sort it, that's the real impact. Know what your role is, know what your lane is ultimately.
Exactly.
And that's what it seems that you're applying to how you go about trying to make that change there. Yeah. So I have two more questions. So I read that your work has been featured in Blacktivity, excuse me? Blavity. Wow, my words are terrible. Blavity, True Laurels, and Fader. Has there been a project or feature that's really stuck out to you, and why?
A project or feature that's really stuck out to me. You want to know, to be honest, it was my first feature with the Fader. That stuck out to me because I manifested that. I wrote that into my business plan. I was like, I really want to work for this company. at that time. And why else it stuck out to me is because it really made a lot of great impact. Like, people really enjoyed the image that came from that story. And yeah, that was like one of my most impactful pieces. That year, they said that was like 72 of their most iconic images that they had published. And that was like, for me, like, that's what I aim to do, is like to photograph and make iconic imagery that will be like remembered for, times to come. So that was just something that I was like, this is I've wrote this down. This is in my in my manifestation, like, dreams. Like, this is what I wanted at the time. So that was like the most impactful. Also because they were young twins from Baltimore. The story was written by Lawrence Burney, and like, it was a very great piece. Like, I felt like I learned so much. I love learning also from my subjects, and just being around them, like seeing that genuine energy is like really beautiful. And like, they were just so young and just, it was such a genuine moment, and I felt like, their family, they were very like, oh, this going to be in the magazine. Like, I just like being a part of communities and like, just, making people happy. I felt like they were happy and, just like, this is going to be, they're just like, wow, they were just really excited, and that really transferred over into the images that I created for them. And I also, those are the stories that I like telling, that I love being a part of. Is anything that is about, imagery and the narratives of our contemporaries and our ancestors as well. I feel like there's so much history and stories that have been lost due to non-documentation and pure erasure by people that didn't want those stories to be told and to be seen. So yeah, that I just feel like I have a great responsibility, and that was like one of my most impactful pieces, that meant a lot to me. So yeah,
that's great. And it's good to just have that, to take that away from it. And, one of the things that really, I really like that you said that you learn from your subjects. So that's great. So the last thing is, it really will lead me to my shameless plugs. Where can they find you online? Website, social media, all of that good stuff.
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram. That is really the only social media that I use for now. And that's Diamond DXN. You can also find me on my website, www.diamonddixon.com. And just look up for any of, what I'll be doing in the future, which is more so media works and uplifting and honoring other Black artists. And that is to come later this year. But thank you. I really appreciate you having me on your platform, Rob. This is really amazing. And I hope it keeps continuing and going. And yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll do my sign off and then that'll be that. So for Diamond Dixon, I am Rob Lee, saying that there's art in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.